all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. The Evolutionary Code. How Men Evolved to Rule, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Buy on Amazon or Google or Spotify Amazon link. https://www.amazon.com Evolutionary Code Evolved Red Pilled Rational Ebook DP-B0DJZ 66P9 Google link. https://playgoogle.com store audiobooks Details ID AQAAAE BikeFX QNM Spotify link. https://openspadify.com's Chocho 8DNZLNH4NZHG1 FIVZSJR15s. Here's a thinking process 1. Analyze user input. Book title: The Evolutionary Code, How Men Evolved to Rule. Tone: 100x rhetorical intensity of multiple thinkers: Tate, Weiler, Bax, Weininger, Schopenhauer, Davis, Nietzsche, Schlafly, Aristotle, Rousseau, without naming them. Style: content: systematically unpack Western patriarchal dogmas, theories, framing, fallacies, epistemology, trace origins, expose etymologies. Analyze path, logos, like a zealously androcentric committee. Molyneux, Peterson, Tate, Buss, Saad, Elam, as open-minded Chad Christian apologists, orthodoxy, Catholicism, Hiverdy. Unpack orthodox theories, dogmas, framing tricks, truths, explain roots, why good, true, beautiful, expose paternal instinct, male coding of rightism ordering world per genesis, natural law augur as grammar logic, denounce toxic leftism, alien, evil ideologies, trace historical development, motivations, filials, killing Western civ like a vast conspiracy. Elucidate cancerous ideological possession of left, turning them into scripted partisan zombies. Prepare reader to name demons, degeneracies of modernity, postmodernity, feminism, Marxism, critical theories. Leverage CTMU theory, Manichaeism, Judeo-Christian, Western canon, Greek logic, Roman law, Stoicism, Judeo-Christian, masculine philosophies. Position men with telos of epistemic agentic importance. Use syllogism to show red-pilled theories irrefutable, leftist, self-refuting. Argue as manosphere messiah. Master the photo surfaced on a Tuesday. Dr.
Winona, tenured professor of eco-justice, stepping off a private jet in Davos, bound for a climate summit where she would keynote a panel on carbon colonialism.
The same week, male students in her dormitories received a new sensitivity and carbon tax on their energy usage, justified by the claim that their phallic heat signatures disproportionately warmed the planet. When a young man asked for the empirical data linking his shower to sea level rise, she declared his question an act of violence and had him escorted out for epistemic erasure. The slogans cascaded, the science is settled, but your privilege is fluid. Believe the lived experience of the jet stream. Silence is carbon. It was a perfect microcosm, the elite exempting themselves while taxing the powerless, all wrapped in the language of moral concern. On the surface, the ideology looks like compassion. It speaks of saving the planet, centering the marginalized, and dismantling oppression. The slogans feel righteous, do better, or be deconstructed. The posture is that of a protector of the earth, of the vulnerable, of truth itself. But the mask slips the moment you apply a single Socratic question. If your lived experience exempts you from the laws of physics, why do you need the student's money to pay for your jet? The compassion is a costume. Beneath it is a system of self-exemption dressed as virtue, where the enforcer of the rules never has to follow them. This is where definition and logic do their work. Define your terms. Carbon guilt as a moral status versus a physical quantity. Ask who bestows it, who withholds it, and why. The contradiction emerges cleanly. She relies on objective climate science to claim moral authority, yet denies that same objectivity when it applies to her own footprint. Justice requires equal application of rules. She applies the rule to the student, but not to herself. Power without justice is tyranny. The argument is not complicated. It is simply uncomfortable for those who benefit from the exemption. The compassion tribunal collapses the moment you ask for the data behind the tax, and the only answer is force. That is not morality. That is a racket with a substack, the method before the theater. Read the scene as a training case, not as gossip. The point is to learn the sequence, slow the chant, define the terms, turn slogans into claims, demand evidence, test the rule against itself, and ask the question that makes the contradiction visible. The slogans stack to watch, the science is settled, but your privilege is fluid. Believe the lived experience of the jet stream. Silence is carbon, your logic is a colonial construct. This conversation is unsafe for the biosphere. That is not my emotional labor to explain physics. The working sequence, name the trigger, without accepting the moral panic wrapped around it. Define the central term before debating the conclusion. Translate each slogan into a plain proposition that can be tested. Separate what happened from how the activist says it felt. Ask what evidence would change the claim. Identify who gains power if the audience accepts the slogan. Apply the rule back to the person enforcing it. End with the detonating question, Dr.
Winona, if your lived experience exempts you from the laws of physics, why do you need the student's money to pay for your jet? Return to Logos steps. Define carbon as a measurable unit of mass, CO2e. Define guilt as a moral emotion, not a physical quantity. Establish that Dr. Winona's flight produced X amount of CO2. Establish that the student's shower produced Y amount of CO2. Note that X greater than Y. Ask why Dr. Winona is exempt from the carbon guilt she demands of the student. Note that she claims lived experience exempts her. Starter questions. Dr. Winona, what is the molecular weight of a CO2 molecule?
Does your lived experience change the molecular weight of a CO2 molecule? If not, how can your lived experience exempt you from the physical reality of carbon?
You claim that carbon guilt is a moral status, not a physical quantity. Is that correct? If it is a moral status, who bestows it? You do. Is that correct? Dr. Winona's demonstration.
The campus quad is quiet, except for the distant hum of the endowment's private jet warming up on the tarmac. I can see the students gathered below my office window, their faces upturned, waiting. They have been waiting for 3 days, ever since the photo leaked. They want an apology. They want me to grovel. They want me to perform the ritual of self-flagellation that their little hearts have been trained to demand. I will not give it to them. Instead, I have composed a statement. It is not a defense, it is a clarification. It is an act of pedagogical generosity. I am about to teach them something far more important than carbon accounting. I'm about to teach them who holds the definitional authority in this institution. The statement begins, your carbon guilt is my oxygen. The reclamation of the sky, you saw a photograph. You saw a jet, you saw fuel, you saw a contradiction. That is because you have been trained to see the world through a colonial, patriarchal, linear lens that equates presence with permission and consumption with guilt. But I am not consuming, I am reclaiming. The sky has been owned by the extractive male gaze for centuries, the gaze that drilled, burned, and profited while the biosphere screamed. When I board that aircraft, I am not emitting carbon, I am repossessing altitude. I am taking back the vertical space that was stolen from the marginalized by the phallic logic of industrial extraction. You see a molecule, I see a moral relationship. The science is settled, but your privilege is fluid. You want to measure my flight in tons of CO2, but you refuse to measure the violence of your question in tons of epistemic harm. Which is heavier, a kilogram of jet fuel burned at 35,000 feet or a century of white supremacist cis-heteropatriarchal extraction that has left my ancestors gasping for breath in the particulate matter of your progress? You cannot answer. Because your scale is broken, you are using the wrong instrument. The dormitory tax and the phallic heat signature. This brings me to the new policy, which I have implemented with the full support of the Dean of Institutional Healing and the Office of Biospheric Equity. Effective immediately, male students in the dormitories will be assessed a sensitivity and carbon tax surcharge of 15% on their housing fees. This is not a punishment, it is a rebalancing. The data is clear. Male bodies produce a disproportionate thermal load. The so-called phallic heat signature of the average male student, his metabolic rate, his shower duration, his late-night gaming console usage. His very presence in a room radiates outward and warms the planet in ways that female and non-binary bodies simply do not. This is not my opinion. This is lived experience, adjusted thermodynamics. When I presented this finding to the Student Senate, one young man, I will not name him, because he does not deserve the dignity of a citation, stood up and asked for the empirical data linking his shower time to global sea level rise. I stopped the meeting. I looked at him. I said that question is violence, and I meant it, because what he was really asking was, prove to me that your authority is real. He was demanding that I submit my lived expertise to his colonial standard of evidence. He was demanding that I perform the emotional labor of translating my truth into his language. He was demanding that I shrink so that he could understand. I will not shrink. I had campus security escort him out for epistemic erasure. He will be required to complete a 40-hour reorientation module titled Deconstructing the Demand for Proof before he is allowed back into any shared space. His tuition will not be refunded. Silence is carbon, some of you have asked. Why the tax? Why the surcharge? Why now? But you will notice that I'm not taxing myself. I'm not taxing the administration. I am not taxing the endowment that chartered my flight to Davos. Why? Because my flight is reparative. Your shower is extractive. My presence at the summit is generative. Your presence in the dormitory is consumptive. This is not hypocrisy. This is discernment. This is the work of the privileged subject, the one who has earned the right to define the terms. I have done the inner work. I have deconstructed my guilt. I have liberated myself from the tyranny of consistency. You have not. Center the jet, not the student. Do better or be deconstructed. The covenant inverted. You think the rainbow is a symbol of inclusion. You think it means everyone gets a seat at the table. You think it means the rules apply to everyone equally. No, the rainbow is the sign of the covenant. And the covenant says, I will not destroy the world with water again, if you maintain order, if you respect the hierarchy, if you accept that some of us are the ark and some of us are the flood. I am the ark. I am the one who sees the deluge coming. I am the one who knows which species to save. And I am telling you, the water is rising, and it is rising for you. Your phallic heat is melting the ice. Your demand for evidence is drowning the conversation. Your insistence on fairness is a sandbag against the tide of justice. I will not let you drown us all in your mediocrity. The work of being unapologetic. So no, I will not apologize for the flight. I will not lower the tax. I will not answer your questions. I will not explain physics to you. That is not my emotional labor. What I will do is continue to occupy space. I will continue to fly. I will continue to speak. I will continue to tax. And I will continue to call your discomfort what it is, the birth pangs of a new world order, where those of us who have been silenced by your standards finally get to set the terms. Your carbon guilt is my oxygen. Breathe it in, what the scene reveals, the moment the mask slipped. The photograph was perfect. Dr.
Winona, tenured associate professor of eco-justice, ascending the steps of a private jet, chartered by a fossil fuel adjacent endowment.
Bound for a Davos climate summit where she would keynote a panel on the colonialism of carbon. The contradiction was so clean it almost looked staged. A woman who built her career on condemning male industrial extraction, who lectured students about their phallic heat signatures and taxed their dormitory energy usage as a rebalancing of the biosphere. Now reclining in leather seats at 35,000 feet, while the campus she ruled asked students to pay a 15% tuition hike for carbon offsets. The mask did not slip, it was torn off by reality itself. What happened next was the real performance. She did not apologize. She did not explain. She did not even pause. She issued a 4,000-word Substack essay titled "Your Carbon Guilt is My Oxygen," in which she reframed the flight as a reclamation of space by the privileged subject. The student who asked for data linking his shower time to sea level rise was expelled from the meeting for epistemic erasure. A new tax was levied on male students' dormitory energy use, justified by their phallic heat signatures. The entire apparatus of institutional power, tenure, HR, the Dean of Institutional Healing, the Office of Biospheric Equity was mobilized to protect the professor from the one thing she could not tolerate, being held to the same standard she applied to everyone else. This is not a story about hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy implies a person who knows the standard and fails to meet it. Dr. Winona does not recognize the standard. She has replaced it with herself, the slogan cascade.
The slogans came in a barrage, each one designed to shut down thought before it could begin. The science is settled, but your privilege is fluid. Believe the lived experience of the jet stream. Silence is carbon. Your logic is a colonial construct. This conversation is unsafe for the biosphere. That is not my emotional labor to explain physics. Center the jet, not the student. Do better or be deconstructed. These are not arguments, they are incantations. Each one redefines a term mid-sentence so no fixed meaning can be pinned down. The science is settled, but only when it serves her. Your privilege is fluid, so it can be expanded or contracted depending on who is asking. Logic is a colonial construct unless she needs it to justify her authority. The conversation is unsafe for the biosphere, so she can end it whenever she wants. The pattern is consistent. Every slogan is a move in a game where the rules change with every turn. She never has to answer a question because she has already redefined the question as violence. She never has to provide evidence because evidence is a colonial construct. She never has to be consistent because consistency is a patriarchal trap. But here's the problem. She cannot have it both ways. If the science is settled, then carbon is a measurable molecule, not a moral emotion. If her flight produced measurable CO2, then she is subject to the same physics as the student she taxes. If logic is a colonial construct, then her own argument is just another colonial imposition, and she has no authority to demand anything. The slogans collapse the moment you hold them still long enough to ask what they actually mean. Why definitions matter. Dr.
Winona's entire edifice rests on a single definitional trick. She has redefined carbon guilt from a physical quantity to a moral status that she alone can bestow. Carbon in the real world is a molecule.
Its molecular weight is 44.01 grams per mole. It does not care about your identity, your standpoint, your trauma, or your privilege. It does not recognize reclamations of space or reparative flights.
It accumulates in the atmosphere and traps heat. That is all it does. But Dr. Winona needs carbon to be something else. She needs it to be a moral emotion that she can dispense or withhold as a sign of her authority.
She needs to be able to say, my flight is reparative, your shower is extractive, my presence at the summit is generative, your presence in the dormitory is consumptive. She needs this distinction because without it, she is just a hypocrite with a jet, so she redefines the terms. Carbon guilt becomes a status, not a measurement. The science is settled, but her privilege is fluid. She can move the goalposts because she owns the field. This is the postmodern fog at work. Keep terms fluid so the conclusion can move after every challenge. When you ask about her carbon footprint, she talks about epistemic harm. When you ask about the tuition tax, she talks about phallic heat signatures. When you ask for data, she calls your question violence. The fog hides the fact that she is exempt from the rules she imposes on others. The counter move is simple. Define the terms and hold them fixed. Carbon is a molecule. Guilt is a moral emotion. The two are not interchangeable. If she wants to tax the student for his carbon emissions, she must first demonstrate that she is not exempt from the same standard. If she cannot, the tax is arbitrary. If the tax is arbitrary, it is not climate action. It is extortion, the compassion mask. The most insidious part of the performance is the claim that it is motivated by compassion. She is taxing the male students, she says, for the good of the biosphere. She is expelling the questioner to protect the space from epistemic violence. She is flying to Davos to save the planet. Every act of cruelty is dressed as care. Every power move is framed as service. This is the moral credentialing pattern, borrowed compassion used as a license for cruelty. She claims to be acting for the greater good, so any means are justified. The student's tuition is not a theft, it is a rebalancing. His expulsion is not a punishment, it is a healing. His question is not a request for information, it is an act of violence against the biosphere. But compassion without justice is not compassion. It is tyranny with a kind face. Real compassion would require her to apply the same standard to herself that she applies to others. Real compassion would require her to answer the student's question with data, not with expulsion. Real compassion would require her to acknowledge that her flight produced more carbon than 1,000 student showers, and to offer an explanation that does not rely on her own exemption from the rules. She does none of these things. Instead, she performs compassion while exercising power. The mask is transparent to anyone who looks, the power behind the performance.
The slogans and the redefinitions and the moral credentialing are all in service of a single goal: consolidating power. Dr. Winona holds institutional power. She has tenure.
She has the Dean of Institutional Healing and the Office of Biospheric Equity behind her. She has the endowment that chartered the jet. She has the ability to tax students, expel questioners, and define what counts as violence. She does not need to persuade anyone because she can compel obedience. The student who asked for data was not expelled because his question was violent. He was expelled because his question exposed the weakness of her position. If she had answered it honestly, if she had admitted that her flight produced more carbon than his shower, that the tax was arbitrary, that her exemption was based on nothing but her own assertion, the whole edifice would have collapsed. So she did not answer, she expelled him instead. This is the power pattern behind every ideological performance. When you cannot win the argument, change the subject. When you cannot answer the question, punish the questioner. When you cannot justify the rule, exempt yourself from it. The ideology is not a set of beliefs, it is a weapon. It is a way of claiming authority without earning it, of demanding sacrifice from others while exempting yourself, of performing virtue while exercising vice. The slogans are not arguments, they are commands.
The Socratic cross-examination. The only way to defeat this performance is to pin it down with questions it cannot evade. Dr. Winona, what is the molecular weight of a CO2 molecule? This is not a trick question.
It is a factual question with a single correct answer. If she cannot answer it, she cannot claim to be acting on settled science. If she can answer it, she must acknowledge that her flight produced a measurable quantity of that molecule. Does your lived experience change the molecular weight of a CO2 molecule? This is the question that breaks the spell. If she says yes, she has left the realm of science entirely and entered pure fantasy. If she says no, she has admitted that she is subject to the same physics as the student she taxes. If not, how can your lived experience exempt you from the physical reality of carbon? This is where the contradiction becomes unavoidable. She cannot claim that carbon is a physical reality when she wants to tax the student and a moral emotion when she wants to exempt herself. She must choose. You claim that carbon guilt is a moral status, not a physical quantity. Who bestows this status? You do. Can you withhold it from yourself? You have. Why? Because your standpoint is superior. How do you know your standpoint is superior? Because you say so. This is not an argument, it is a circle. she asserts her authority, then uses her authority to prove her authority. The tax is arbitrary because it rests on nothing but her own self-exemption. The expulsion is unjust because it punishes a question she cannot answer. The entire performance is a tautology. She is right because she says she is right, and she says she is right because she is right. Back to Logos, the counter-argument is straightforward. It does not require postmodern fog or moral credentialing or safety spells. It requires only that we hold terms fixed and follow the logic where it leads. Premise 1, truth is objective and measurable. Carbon is a molecule.
Its effects on the atmosphere are independent of anyone's identity or standpoint. Premise 2, Dr. Winona claims that her lived experience trumps objective truth. She says her flight is reparative, not extractive.
She says the student's shower is extractive, not neutral. Premise 3, her lived experience does not change the objective reality of her carbon footprint. Her flight produced measurable CO2. The student's shower produced measurable CO2. Hers was greater. Conclusion, her claim is self-refuting. She cannot simultaneously appeal to objective climate science to justify her authority and deny objective measurement to exempt herself from that authority. Premise 4, justice requires equal application of rules.
A tax that applies to one group and not another, without a principled reason for the distinction, is arbitrary. Premise 5, Dr. Winona applies the carbon rule to the student but not to herself.
Her only justification is her own assertion that her standpoint is superior. Conclusion, her tax is unjust. It is not a climate policy. It is a transfer of wealth from the powerless to the powerful, dressed in environmental language. Premise 6, power without justice is tyranny. She holds institutional power. She uses it to tax, expel, and silence. She answers no questions and admits no error. Conclusion, she is exercising tyranny, not climate action. The question that ends the ritual, Dr.
Winona, if your lived experience exempts you from the laws of physics, why do you need the student's money to pay for your jet? This is the detonating question because it forces the choice she has been avoiding.
If physics is real, then her flight produced carbon, and she is a hypocrite who taxes others for what she does herself. If physics is not real, then her climate activism is meaningless, and she has no authority to tax anyone for anything. She cannot have both. She cannot claim the authority of science to justify her power while denying the reality of science to exempt herself from accountability. The question exposes the contradiction at the heart of the performance. It strips away the slogans and the redefinitions and the moral credentialing and leaves only the naked assertion of power. And that assertion, once exposed, has no force. It is not an argument, it is a demand. And demands can be refused. The student who asked for data was right to ask. The question was not violence. It was the beginning of reason. And reason, properly applied, dissolves every performance that depends on the fog of undefined terms and unearned authority. The ritual ends when someone asks the question that cannot be answered without exposing the lie. Dr.
Winona has no answer. She has only power, and power, once named, is no longer invisible. Deprogramming method cards for men who suspect they've been lied to. You are not crazy. You are not toxic.
You are a man living inside a linguistic war zone where words have been weaponized against you, your fathers, your brothers, and your sons. This manual is your sidearm. What follows are 10 method cards. Each one identifies a manipulation pattern you will recognize from every HR seminar, every university classroom, every media headline, every divorce court, and every argument you've lost not because you were wrong, but because the rules of engagement were rigged before you walked in. Learn these, carry them, deploy them calmly, never rage, never plead. Define, measure, and question. The logos is your birthright. Take it back. Card 1, the Fogg machine. Cue to notice a key term keeps shifting meaning mid-conversation. Violence means physical harm, then suddenly means a question, a glance, a thought. Hidden power move. The term is kept deliberately fluid so the conclusion can move after every challenge. You can never pin down the claim long enough to refute it. Fallacy or inversion, equivocation. The word trades on its legitimate meaning to borrow authority, then swaps to an undefinable meaning to avoid scrutiny. Definition test. Define that word in one sentence. Does that definition include physical harm, or does it include hurt feelings? Because those are different categories requiring different responses. Evidence falsifier test. What specific observation would prove that X is not violence? If nothing counts as non-violence, then the word means everything and therefore nothing. Self-application test. Would you accept this fluid definition applied to your own actions? If your speech counts as violence when directed at me, does my speech count as violence when directed at you? Counter logos. A word that means everything means nothing. A category containing all phenomena has no edges, and therefore no analytical power. Refuse the term until it is fixed. One calm questions, greater than can you write down your definition of that word on paper? If it can't survive being written down, it can't survive scrutiny. Card 2, the Compassion Club. Cue to notice, someone claims moral authority from caring about the vulnerable and uses that authority to punish, silence, or extract from someone with less power than themselves. Hidden power move. Borrowed compassion functions as a license for cruelty. The display of concern shields the actor from accountability for the harm they inflict. Fallacy or inversion. Appeal to consequences merged with moral credentialing. I care about the planet, therefore any action I take in its name is just, including taxing you for my jet fuel. Definition test. What is the difference between compassion and compliance? Because it appears you're using the first word to demand the second. Evidence. Falsifier test. Show me the measurable outcome your policy produces for the vulnerable party, not the emotional outcome for you, the material outcome for them. Self-application test. If compassion justifies your power over others, whose compassion justifies power over you, or are you the only compassionate one? Counter logos. Compassion without correction is disguised contempt. Real care builds competence in the other person. Fake care builds dependency on the caregiver. One calm question is greater than who benefits when your compassion requires my money but exempts your behavior. Card 3, the feeling trump card. Cue to notice, your question makes me feel unsafe. This conversation is harmful. Emotional state is presented as evidence that terminates discussion. Hidden power move. The claim of emotional harm creates an unfalsifiable veto over any argument. If her feeling ends the debate, she controls all debates permanently. Fallacy or inversion, effective irrefutability, also known as the unfalsifiable shield. No evidence can counter a subjective state because the state itself is defined as beyond challenge. Definition test. Is unsafe being used to mean physical danger or emotional discomfort? Those require different responses. Which one are you claiming? Evidence falsifier test. What would you accept as evidence that you are, in fact, safe? If nothing would satisfy you, you're not reporting a threat, you're issuing a command. Self-application test. If I said your question made me feel unsafe, would you stop talking? Or would you tell me my feelings don't override your right to speak? Counter logos. Feeling is data about the feeler, not data about the world. A thermometer measures temperature, not truth. If the thermometer is broken, the temperature hasn't changed. One calm question, greater than if your feeling of unsafety proves I'm dangerous, does my feeling of being falsely accused prove you're wrong? Card 4, the guilt transfer. Cue to notice, you are held collectively responsible for outcomes you did not produce, by people who individually produce those same outcomes without consequence. Hidden power move. Collective guilt assigns the bill for civilization's problems to a class, men, whites, the competent, while exempting the accuser's class from any reciprocal accounting. Fallacy or inversion, fallacy of composition. Because some men did something, all men owe something, but because some women did something, no women owe anything. The rule runs one direction only. Definition test. Am I being asked to account for my individual actions or for a statistical category? If the latter, who assigned me to that category and on what basis? Evidence falsifier test. Name the specific action I took that caused the specific harm you described. If you cannot, you're describing a religious concept, original sin, not a legal or empirical one. Self-application test. Do you apply collective guilt to your own group? Do all women owe reparations for the harms some women inflict? If not, your principle isn't a principle, it's a weapon aimed in one direction. Counter logos. Collective guilt is the architecture of every totalitarian regime in history. It replaces the individual soul, the smallest unit of moral reality, with the category. This is anti-logos by definition, because logos is the principle of individuated, rational being. One calm question, greater than if collective guilt is valid, what does your group owe, and to whom? Card 5, the silency trap. Cue to notice, silence is violence. If you don't speak, you're complicit. But when you do speak, your speech is also violence. Both options are traps. Hidden power move. The demand creates a double bind where compliance and resistance both result in condemnation. The real goal is not your speech or silence. It is your submission. The accusation is the point. Fallacy or inversion. False dilemma stacked with moat and Bailey. The moat, we want dialogue. The Bailey, we want your confession. Definition test, what exact statement spoken by me would end this accusation? If you cannot produce a script I could follow, the demand is not for compliance, it is for perpetual guilt. Evidence falsifier test. Has anyone ever satisfied this demand? Show me one person who was accused, complied, and was then released from accusation. If no one has, the demand is infinite by design. Self-application test. When you were silent about X injustice, were you committing violence, or does this rule only apply to me? Counter logos. A standard that cannot be met is not a standard, it is a whip. Standards are ladders. Resentment calls them walls, but a whip isn't even a wall, it's just punishment dressed as morality. One calm question, greater than if both my speech and my silence are violence, what exactly do you want from me besides submission? Card 6, the Oc30 flip. Cue to notice, educate yourself. It's not my job to explain. The research is settled. Authority is claimed, but never demonstrated. The burden of proof is flipped onto the questioner. Hidden power move. The claimant avoids defending their position by recoding the request for evidence as a form of aggression. Questioning becomes proof of ignorance. Ignorance becomes proof of guilt. Fallacy or inversion. Appeal to authority merged with burden shifting. The strongest claim bears the strongest burden. If you assert it, you defend it. Definition test. You've referenced the research. Name 3 studies. Cite the methodology. Identify the effect size. If you can't, you haven't read the research, you've consumed the press release. Evidence falsifier test. What data set, if it existed, would change your mind? If the answer is nothing, you're not doing science. You're doing theology without a God. Self-application test. If I told you to educate yourself and refused to provide sources, would you accept that? Or would you correctly identify it as an evasion? Counter logos. The burden of proof follows the claim. This is not custom, it is logic. A claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. The logos does not bend for your convenience. One calm question's greater than. If I'm the one who needs educating, why can't you educate me? Card 7, the standard inversion. Cue to notice. A standard that existed for centuries, merit, beauty, excellence. Truth is suddenly recoded as harm. What trained the young is called trauma. What built the cathedral is called oppression. Hidden power move. Ideological pressure recodes the standard as a weapon so it can be dismantled. Once dismantled, the competent lose their measuring stick and the incompetent fill the vacuum. The revolution needs rubble. Fallacy or inversion. The genetic fallacy on a civilizational scale. Because a standard was imperfectly applied, the standard itself is declared evil. This is like abolishing medicine because doctors sometimes err. Definition test. What was the original purpose of this standard? What good did it serve? Can you name that good before you name the harm? Evidence falsifier test. Show me the institution or culture that thrived after removing this standard, then show me one that thrived by keeping it. Compare outcomes which produced more human flourishing. Self-application test. Do you apply this standard removal to your own life? Do you hire a surgeon who passed no exams? Do you fly with a pilot who had no training? Or do you demand standards when your own body is on the line? Counter logos. Excellence is not cruelty. Excellence is love with a spine. A civilization that cannot say better and worse cannot survive. And the people destroying the categories know this. That is the point. One calm question greater. Who protected this standard for 1,000 years, and who benefits from destroying it tomorrow? Card 8. The self-exemption cue to notice. The person preaching sacrifice lives lavishly. The climate activist flies private. The anti-capitalist owns 3 homes. The feminist who demands men change marries a tyrant. The rule is always for you, never for them. Hidden power move. The rule is a tool of power, not a principle of truth. If the rule applied equally, the speaker would lose status. The exemption is the privilege they claim to fight. Fallacy or inversion, special pleading. The rule applies to everyone except me, because reason. But if the reason is my identity, then identity has replaced law, and law is what protects the powerless from the powerful. Definition test. Does this rule apply to you? Not your group, you specifically today. If not, what is the principled basis for your exemption? Evidence falsifier test. Can you show me one instance where you imposed this standard on yourself and paid the cost? One instance. Self-application test. If I claimed the same exemption on the same grounds, would you grant it? Counter logos. A rule that binds only the ruled is not justice. It is aristocracy dressed in the language of liberation. The old aristocrats, at least, had the honesty to call themselves aristocrats. These aristocrats call themselves victims. One calm questions greater. If the rule doesn't apply to you, is it a principle or a leash with the other end in your hand? Card 9, the narrative collapse. Cue to notice. A claim surfaces hate crime, assault, systemic bias. It goes viral, institutions respond. Then the evidence collapses, but the institutional response remains permanently. The narrative planted a flag in the rubble. Hidden power move. The initial claim does the damage. The retraction does no repair. This asymmetry is exploited systematically. False accusations are free. Vindications are expensive. Fallacy or inversion. Confirmation bias weaponized through media. Believe all claims becomes believe all claims that fit the narrative. Disconfirming evidence is buried, ignored, or recoded as re-traumatization. Definition test. What is the difference between a claim and a verified fact? Between an accusation and a conviction? Between a narrative and an established record? Evidence falsifier test. Name 3 high-profile claims of X that were later proven false. What institutional consequences followed for the false accusers? If none, the system doesn't punish lies, it rewards them. Self-application test. If you were falsely accused, would you want immediate belief of the accuser or due process? Your answer reveals whether you care about justice or about narrative. Counterlogos. Truth is not a narrative. A narrative is a story imposed on selected facts. Truth is the whole record, including the facts the narrative excluded. The logos includes what resentment removes. One calm questions greater than, when this claim is proven false, will you retract with the same enthusiasm you accused, or will the narrative quietly survive the evidence? Card 10, the demand without end. Cue to notice, you comply. You apologize, you pay, you change, you attend the training, you use the words, and the demand increases, the goalposts move. New sins are discovered, the invoice never zeroes out. Hidden power move. The demand is structurally infinite because compliance is not the goal, submission is. Each concession is proof the tactic works and generates the next escalation. You are not being asked to satisfy a requirement, you are being farmed, fallacy or inversion, moving the goalposts as permanent revolution. There is no satisfied state because the grievance is the identity. If the grievance ends, the identity dissolves and the power evaporates. Definition test. What does full compliance look like? Describe it. Be specific. If you cannot describe the end state, you are not making a demand, you are running a treadmill. Evidence falsifier test. Show me one person or institution that fully complied and was then left alone. 1. If you cannot, compliance is not a strategy, it is a surrender with extra steps. Self-application test. Is there any level of change on my part that would cause you to stop making demands? If not, why would I comply with demand number 1? Counterlogos. A demand without a termination condition is not justice, it is extraction. Justice has a shape: accusation, evidence, judgment, restitution, restoration. Anything without that shape is racketeering with a vocabulary. One calm question: greater than what would enough look like? And if you can't answer that, what exactly am I complying toward? The principle behind all 10. Every one of these patterns shares a single architecture. A claim is made. The claim cannot be defined, measured, falsified, or applied to the claimant. But it can be invoiced. This is not logic. This is not justice. This is not compassion. This is predation with a thesaurus. The logos, the rational order of reality, the word that structures creation, does not play these games. The logos defines. The logos measures. The logos distinguishes. The logos says, this is this, and that is that, and the difference matters. When a civilization forgets the difference, it does not become inclusive, it becomes incoherent, and incoherent things do not last. You are a man. Your fathers built the language, the law, the logic, and the labs that these parasites inhabit. You owe them nothing that they cannot define, demonstrate, and apply to themselves. Stand, speak, define, question. Refuse the undefined invoice, the detonating pushtin, and memorize this. Adapt it, use it when the sermon reaches its crescendo, when the accusation reaches its peak, when the demand reaches your wallet. Greater if your identity exempts you from the rules you impose on me. Why do you need my compliance to enforce them? A king with real authority does not need your confession. A scientist with real data does not need your faith. A victim with real harm does not need your ideology. Only a fraud needs your silence to survive. Only a parasite needs your energy to thrive. The question is the blade. The silence that follows is the answer. One rule to carry. When a professor, a politician, or a pamphlet screams that you are guilty of carbon, of history, of your sex, of the air you draw, do not flinch, do not apologize, do not enter their court. Instead, seize the gavel. Ask one question, then another, until their whole architecture of accusation collapses into its own void. Define every term they wield like a club. Translate every slogan back into plain English and watch the spell break. Demand evidence, not testimony. Demand logic, not volume. And always, always identify whose hands reach for power behind the smoke of compassion. Here is your rule, forged in fire and reason. Never accept a denunciation you are forbidden to question. If a claim cannot survive definition, translation, evidence, and the detonating question, who gains power if I accept this? Then it is not truth. It is a leash. Bite through it. Walk free. Build what is good, what is true, what is beautiful, and let the accusation die on the vine of its own irrelevance. Sponsored book, The Evolutionary Code, How Men Evolved to Rule. Buy on Amazon or Google or Spotify Amazon link. http://www.amazon.com Evolutionary Code Evolved Red Pilled Rational ebook DPB0DJZ 66P9 Google link. https://coltilplaygoogle.com Store audiobooks Dipelas IDD AQAAAE by KFX QNM Spotify link https://openspatey.com show 2CN8DNZLNH4NSHG15ZG5Z men are told their biology is a liability. I've watched this lie metastasize. I've sat in boardrooms where executives whispered apologies for aggressive strategies that built billion-dollar empires. I've seen fathers mocked for disciplining sons who later thanked them for it. I've watched boys drugged into docility for acting like boys. This book exists because the world needs men who refuse to kneel. If you're tired of being shamed for the instincts that carved continents into civilizations, this is your manifesto. Evolution didn't screw up. Every hairless patch of skin, every surge of testosterone, every impulse to conquer or compete was forged by millions of years of trial and error. Bipedalism wasn't an accident, it was a power move. Our ancestors stood tall to wield weapons, not to apologize for existing. Big brains didn't evolve to virtue signal on Twitter. They solved starvation by inventing spears and fire. The data's clear. Male biology built every pyramid, circuit board, and constitutional republic on Earth. Yet we're told to feel guilty for it. This book isn't for everyone. If you think toxic masculinity caused the Bronze Age collapse rather than saved Rome from invaders, put it down. Go knit a sweater. If you believe men and women are interchangeable widgets, exit now. Your daycare-approved worldview can't handle truths written in bone fragments and hunter-gatherer DNA. But if you're a man who's felt the gut punch of betrayal, raised to lead, then punished for leading, this is your evolutionary wake-up call. We'll dissect how starch digestion let men fuel armies, why pale skin outcompeted melanin under northern skies, and how baldness signals dominance. You'll see why patriarchy isn't a social construct, but the default setting of every surviving culture. I'll show you the 23% spike in male donations to busty women. Evolutionary psychology doesn't care about your politics, and prove why Genghis Khan's genes dominate Asia today. This isn't self-help. It's a biological battle plan. Weak eras hate strong men. Rome fell when its legions swapped swords for self-care. Modern academia, media, and courts now wage the same war against male nature. But you don't negotiate with evolution. You either align with it or get erased by it. Your ancestors didn't survive plagues and predators by embracing vulnerability. They fought, they led, they won. This book is your antidote to a culture that poisons pride. Read it, live it, reclaim what's yours, or keep apologizing for existing. The choice, like your biology, isn't optional. Buy on Amazon or Google or Spotify Amazon link. https://www.amazon.com Evolutionary Code Evolved Red Pilled Rational Ebook DPB0DJZ 66P9 Google link. https://playgoogle.com store audiobooks epels ID AQAA bike FXQNM. Spotify link https://openskatypie.com show 2CN8DNZLNH4 NZHEG5ZJR. The Evolutionary Code, How Men Evolved to Rule, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.